Hi, everyone. Victoria Alai here. I'm the author of Survival 101, the guidebook about navigating the ups and downs in life and basically finding a way in every area of your life to go from surviving to thriving. It's just one of those things I wrote for my 17-year-old self. So hopefully you or someone you know who's needing some guidance will pick it up. Anyways, as part of my self-help addiction, I am interviewing people that I think have helped me a lot or that I've heard of or that I feel might have some kind of insight into navigating the ups and downs in life and giving us all some shortcuts. So today I have my friend Carol, and she's here to tell us about her experiences of going from being very active as a younger person and teaching ski school and that kind of thing to going through some traumatic events, which led her to have some physical issues, which then led her to find out about the career of physical therapy and how to become your own best advocate for yourself and others through the medical process. So that's what we're talking with her today about, is how to navigate the medical process for yourself and the people you love. Let's get started. I'm so glad that you're here, Carol. And I basically have really appreciated everything I've ever heard you share about health and wellness, and even helping older people and their path in health and wellness, including your mom. I just wanted to see if you could share a little bit about yourself. And then before we get started on that, what's on your mind? Anything that you were thinking of when you thought of, hey, I want to talk to the general public? You've got a little voice piece here of what's been important to you, either in the physical therapy realm or other wellness.
I think when I went to medical school and all this stuff, I was never feeling good. You study all this medicine and you take all these tests and nothing comes up. But when I went to a functional medicine doctor, they ran certain tests and I just was like, oh shit, shoot. I was positive for Lyme and the tests aren't always correct. You have to do a special test. And then that kind of opened up my world to functional medicine and being treated differently. So in physical therapy, then going to school, I did craniosacral and added that into when I was practicing all those little massage and hands-on therapy and trigger points and all stuff that isn't always taught in medical school because we have to be more open. And then I did work with seniors and I saw, like you said, on the dementia, and that was really hard because they take so much more work because they keep forgetting. And then when I
Wow.
and then what, because they would forget their exercises. So you have to just be encouraging and patience. So patience and kindness
Patience
is
and kindness in working with people.
and yes, and yeah, that's the big key. And you never know what's going to happen. You can have a plan, but it never goes as planned. I think 9 years ago, I discovered my mom was started the memory issues, and that was really hard. And my family didn't believe me. They kept saying
Right.
it's stress. So I just did it alone and I just kept showing up for her because she helped me. I had a couple accidents, two big major changes in life from accidents. And she was there the whole time to help me through when I was in the hospital. And I was hospitalized a couple times after a serious car accident. I had head trauma and
Wow.
I was given blood and it wasn't tested. So I
Wow.
tracked it down. That's where I got Lyme because I started getting sick from the blood that was given to me. So
Oh,
but that's just, I think a lot of people go in the medical field because they're healing their own bodies.
interesting. Interesting. And what was your background with the medical field? Like, just give a brief intro, and then I want to go back into this idea of the medical field, the functional medicine, the kind of like your journey with this for either yourself and or other people. And then maybe at the end, you can give a few tips to people on what they can be mindful of as they're going through their own medical journeys and their
Uh-huh.
physical health. So just a little bit of background.
My background was I was always active for years. I worked completely on sailboats. I was a ski instructor. I was never in a sit down job. I was waitress. I was always doing something active or cooking. But then when I cleaned up my life and I had an injury coming in, I wasn't feeling good. Then I opened up my eyes and somebody just said, my physical therapist said, you would be really good at this.
Interesting.
I was being treated for my injuries. And she opened up the world and I just decided maybe I should try this. And I just started taking classes and I had to repeat them a couple times, but it was really interesting to get to know the human body, how it worked. I went to 2 colleges up in the Tahoe, Reno area. Yeah, down in Reno,
Interesting. Interesting.
yeah, it
So
was
what it sounds like is your past is that you actually are very active yourself physically, like skiing
yeah,
and doing things that were outdoors and physical. And I know from talking to you in the past, you did a lot of dancing and different things like that, and that this was a big part of your life. And
uh-huh,
and so then you had injuries and went into physical therapy. And then that's when this therapist said, have you ever considered going into this yourself and helping others? And so
right,
before that, you hadn't done as much research on the physical body itself. You just were
right,
enjoying it. But then as you started to learn about it, you're saying that you actually became more fascinated by the different parts of the body, or maybe the mind-body connection. What was it that really got you into saying, "Oh, I think I'm going to do this, become a physical therapist"?
I just thought because I was going to school to be an airline stewardess.
That's
And
great.
I just started going back to school, and then I changed, and it was just really I just set out on a journey that I wanted a career that maybe I would be happy with and give back. That's what it was.
Be with
Yeah.
people, be helpful.
And I think a lot of the therapists that you hear about have been through the same thing. They've had injuries or somebody in their family, and that's how they became a therapist. That's I'm hearing that from a lot of people. I
Wow.
heard that from people. So I started the journey to go to school. Even in school, I had to repeat the classes because they were hard. Medical language is a whole different
Oh,
language.
terminology. I've heard
Yeah.
that terminology and some of these things can really be difficult.
And then you had because it's Latin and I didn't understand it. I just dove into it and I was like, and I had to repeat the class. But when I repeated the class, the physiology and anatomy, which is probably one of the hardest classes to take, it it just set in and I understood. I was so embarrassed that I flunked. I had to drop the class and then I repeated it, but it just made more sense. And then I had an EMT. I was a paramedic. My EMT teacher, there were some really good teachers that were my mentors
Right.
that they just said, you can do this. Cause I kept going, I don't think I can do this. I really didn't think I could do it. And he goes, yes, you can. And then they put me in study groups and I just people that were just nervous about the test and testing. Yeah, the study groups. And he encouraged me to go through with it.
So this is something, by the way, that I think is more common than people think. I think, like I've been talking with another person recently that's had to redo some courses towards her medical degree. And I think that there's this feeling of shame or what's wrong with me that I can't do it. And then, but something kept you going and you decided to dive even deeper and were able to actually sink in with that physiology class after all and really
Right.
get the magic. And what the other thing it sounds like is you didn't have to do it alone. Like you were able to get some support.
Right. Because I completely got sober at that point, and then I had my sponsor who encouraged me. She said, "You have 2 choices." She said, "Go for the gold."
Right. So you can
She
either
said,
get up.
you" that and it was just like, I went, "What?" And I was like, I didn't think so. I decided to just kept going, and it was hard because we had to travel I had to travel to Reno, to Truckee Meadows, and the classes were good, and then the other courses were in Truckee through the high school, the EMT and the other classes. And then once I completed all that, then I started applying to colleges.
This is fantastic. And it sounds like that you've had a lot of transition in your personal life. And then when you were first talking, you were talking about the concept of the traditional medical system and then something called functional medicine.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what is functional medicine versus traditional medicine, and how did you start to weave it in? Did you just learn about it through your own therapies when you were injured,
Um,
or how did you learn about this? What is it? How'd you learn about it?
it's functional medicine is they treat the cause. They,
Explain that more.
right? Yeah, regular medicine piles prescriptions on you and
Right.
doesn't treat the cause. That's like the difference. And a lot of people today are discovering functional medicine. They're getting tired of our regular system. It's really good for like orthopedic injuries and all this, but then when it comes down to nutritional deficiencies or chronic fibromyalgia or all these little mysterious diseases that nobody knows, when you get to the root cause, it really opens up your eyes. And I went, no, I don't have Lyme. I don't have Lyme. And I was like, I
Ah,
just, yeah, to get to the
aha.
root cause. And then that started the journey.
That's really interesting that what you're saying is a lot of people have denial about some of the other issues they have, mental health illnesses. I just interviewed someone on that. But you're saying that even on a physical level, it's like hard to get to the underlying cause. And partly it might be because people don't want to see it. They don't want to see, oh, I've
Yeah,
got a chronic disease or I've got a something like this. And so the functional medicine is trying to get underneath it to what is the actual cause of the symptoms rather than just treating the symptoms. Is that what, trying to just put medicine towards it? It's actually trying
right,
to get underneath it. And
right. They're getting to the root cause and treating with vitamins and the medicine together.
would you say that's something that you have?
Um, I know, like, I can't
Sorry,
prescribe,
go on.
medicines or anything like that. I know that the physical, when you lose your mobility, then if you're not moving, of course, you have to keep moving. But a lot of people don't feel good. Getting to the root cause of why they're not feeling good or zero energy is what regular doctors don't get at. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And I see that, and I saw that with my mom too. When the dementia, the doctors they were treating her, and I wish I had known a little bit more about preventing it. Because like when my dad died, it was not a really great death. And my mom, they put her on Ativan in her 80s, a light dose, and she was on it for years, but started having really weird symptoms. I believe that contributed to her dementia when we finally got her off of it. You don't prescribe somebody those kind of drugs for long term, and it's
Right.
misused. It's so misused, and my family didn't believe me, and I kept seeing it, and I know the damages that Ativan can do. If it's good for short term, but not for long term use, and especially in an older adult, you don't want to prescribe it unless it's at the in care stage.
So basically, you had to become your own advocate and then the advocate of your mom.
Oh,
It really sounds like that. Was there a point when you first started out with medical procedures and things like that for yourself where you thought, okay, I'm going to trust this person and this is great. I'm excited to get the help. And then later on, you found, wait a second, what about this or that? And you started having to think more for yourself around your medicine,
right.
is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And just really not just take the first recommendation from a traditional doctor, but dig deeper and say, what else could it be? And
Yeah.
especially before taking medications, really take a look at, is this appropriate even as a non-medical person? Take a look at, what am I
Yeah.
taking? What are they asking me to take? And does it make sense for me? And if I have these side effects, go in and ask about it. But I think the other key is that, again, you have friends, you have family members, and you can observe each other and notice these things like, oh, my mom isn't acting the way she normally does.
And my mom, she didn't drink, she didn't do drugs. She was on blood pressure pills, which I'm not fond of. I think you can control it other ways. And She basically had a hysterectomy too, and I did too, and she didn't have any hormones in her body, and I believe a lot of our hormones have to be balanced even in our later ages. It's because the hormones contribute to brain health and bones, especially in women. And I just what I kept learning, researching, it sucks how Western medicine will cover it up. When you go to functional, it's not covered by insurance, most of it, which is sad. So it's more expensive. But I have doctors when I go to my regular doctors, I keep asking them to run tests, and they're like, "Oh, we can't do that." And it was just like, I run my own tests sometimes. I pay for it.
Right. I see what you're saying. And this goes back to being your own advocate and to being present with your physical body. And what I hear is that the way that we take care of ourselves physically, the choices we make around surgery, different things like that, can also affect our mental health, can also
Yeah,
affect it's all holistic as we intellectually know. But then when it comes down to it, and this surgery comes up as an option, and this comes up as an option, and then suddenly you have low energy and what's happening there. And as we age, like you said, these things can become more pronounced. And
right,
then I don't know about you, but as I age, it's do I want to be making my health my number one job? Maybe on some level it has to be at that. But I guess the more that we can make these decisions younger too, and take more personal responsibility and say, wait a second, this functional medicine person is telling me maybe to get this test and it's not covered by insurance. So I'm just going to go ahead and pay for it myself, find a way to
right,
do it. And so you don't just stop because the system isn't geared towards what you want to do. In other words, you
right,
basically decide, look, my health is what I have in this life, my mental health, my physical health. And
right.
and so I'm going to do what I can. And so tell me more about how does this kind of show up for you or for your clients in a practical way? Can you give any examples of where you were going through something or you had a client that was, and then you took a look at functional medicine to get a little deeper, and then you made a different choice of treatment because of it?
When I worked, it was like I was a teacher. So I was teaching exercise for adults with disabilities. And then when I ended up going into really working as a therapist, I couldn't get a job in outpatient and I worked inpatient. And sometimes a little bit home health is good, but I just ended up doing subacute. So you basically on our regular system, let's say they give you 45 minutes with the patient, but you really have 15 minutes and a half hour of documentation. That's
Oh
how it
my
works in our
goodness.
system. It's sad. It's really sad. So you're rushed. So when you go in for a regular day, you'll have maybe 16 patients in an 8-hour shift. And it's like, how are you going to do this? And it's crazy. So the medical teams, you don't get to really spend a lot of time. Once in a while, you get to talk with somebody. And I met a couple people that had Lyme disease, some patients in the facilities, and they talked about it. Also, MS is and ALS are really that's a later result of Lyme.
Interesting.
You didn't know
Interesting.
that?
No, I
That
did
it's
not.
yeah, it's MS, ALS. The Lyme lab is in Palo Alto. It's hygienics, and people would fly all over the world to come to this lab, and they test all
Wow.
the yeah. And when even went to a Lyme thing, people were in walkers and in wheelchairs, and when they get treated, they start walking again. There is a difference.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so when you get the diagnosis, it's just what I've seen. And I'm like going, "Oh my god, I can still be the person that tries to exercise you with the understanding," but I kept researching because for my own health and then for my mom's health too. And yeah, it's our Western community. It's sad. They band-aid it. It's really sad. That's what I feel. They put a band-aid on,
Right.
especially yeah, with MS and ALS, bipolar, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, all that was fibromyalgia is just what they call Western medicine does. It's a systematic disease, but they don't know what it is. That's what fibromyalgia is. And I was diagnosed with that until I found out I had Lyme. So
Oh my goodness. And what amazes me is you went from being extremely active, teaching skiing as well, working on the ski slopes and just being involved. And how did you handle the change when you started to experience some of these symptoms of fatigue and different
well,
things? How did
I
how did you?
I experienced that after my car accident. It was in my 20s, so I would self-medicate myself for energy.
Right, back then,
Yeah,
back in the day. And do you think a lot of people do that? Like they end up with a situation
uh
they don't know how to handle it. I know I certainly did when I was younger with trauma and everything and anxiety and post-traumatic stress that I ended up
yeah,
drinking, leaning on alcohol more. So then that covered it up for me too until I finally took all the pieces
yeah,
and looked at them and got a little more help. But so you had a period after your accident where you basically were self-medicating, and then somewhere along the line, did that change where you actually decided, wait a
yeah.
second, this isn't healthy for me. I've got to look at some options.
When I completely stopped the drinking and then everybody says you're gonna feel better, I'm like, "I'm not feeling better."
Right.
And that's when I put myself on the journey, and then I'd go to school, and I didn't know how I was gonna get through school, and then during more self-discovery, just like with the craniosacral, the acupressure, I started taking alternative classes or studies during my school, whichever I could, and then massage. And then it didn't start happening until later on. Because when you're in school, you don't have that much time. You're just trying to get through the 4 years of
Right.
training. And I was only a physical therapy assistant, but it just took me a lot longer to get through. So it took a couple of years, 2 to 3 years of prerequisites, and then getting into college, the DeAnza's, and it was just physical therapy assistant. And they changed the thing right at the time for physical therapists. So I couldn't afford to keep going. So I decided to do it this way. But,
Wow.
physical therapy assistant. Yeah. Which is just as good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another decision you made, was to decide, okay, I really want to be in this field because the physical body, the mental connection is so important. But you reached a point where financially and otherwise you decided, okay, I'm staying here with this certification, and then I'm going to gather all my resources and help my clients with whatever I can,
Right.
whether it is specifically something taught in formal education or like with the craniosacral or some of the acupressure
Yeah.
and things like that. You were actually looking at what works for you, what you think thought might work for others. And do you feel that your personal well-being, health and wellness wise, has been improved because of the fact that you went outside the box to see what is everything that could help me, and that you also started to say, maybe I don't need all these pills. I could do some vitamins, I could do some exercises, I could do some meditation, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm discovering it's more that I think that the medications, like when they tried to give them to my mom, the Alzheimer's drugs and all that, I found her on the floor. She was just a
Oh
zombie.
no.
So those drugs don't work. And it was just, oh, it was devastating. And I got her off of them. And even today, I'm still fighting to get her off her blood pressure meds because I don't think, we need to keep our brain hydrated. And I know by my experience going into the knee replacement, I had to be on blood pressure meds, but I felt like a zombie a couple times.
Interesting,
And
interesting.
I'm fighting for my mom, and I've been asked to leave the facility a couple times. I'm
That's
asking questions.
hard.
Yeah, this is a place I used to work, and I'm like, I'm fighting for my mom, and I'll see your disposition there. Memory patients, it you have to become their voice because medical
Right,
system will walk over you. It's so sad, and I would do anything to get her out right now if I could. So that's what I'm
right.
working. Yeah, and I
That's
can't. I'm
go.
at the power of attorney.
Now, here's something. When you put yourself in your mom's shoes, what do you think if you were in her situation of having the memory issues, would you want from that
Uh-huh.
side? If you were in her position and the roles were reversed, what do you think because I think that's what is happening. Maybe there might be some people listening now who have parents that are going to go through this, or
Yeah.
they themselves are starting to have memory issues. What do you think?
I actually wanted to move up to Reno. I found a two-bedroom, but my sister is the power of attorney because I wanted to take care of my mom long term. I didn't want to put her in a facility after working in subacute nursing homes. But after COVID, 24-hour care with my mom, I was a little out of it because it was really hard to do
Right.
24/7.
That's
Here's
a
what a lot
big
of
job.
people. So my mom, I just have to be her voice. Most family members don't want their mother. My friend who's normal of 40 years, she's taking care of her mom who's a Stanford professor that has dementia that can barely, and it's horrifying. She's just horrified with the whole thing. And her mom's on 24-hour care, but she's able to keep her at home. Most people can't afford it, so they put them in the nursing homes. And in the nursing homes, too, I saw a lot of drug addiction people in there coming off the streets. It was a place for them to sleep. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Interesting. And you're talking about the clients that would come into the nursing home that
Yeah.
would use it sometimes as an opportunity to reset their lives a little or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I wonder if that happens a lot in the medical field where people might be getting other needs met for things than
Yeah.
directly. But going back, I want to talk a little bit more because so many
Okay.
people I know have parents, or like my husband's stepmom is going through this dementia right now and everything. And I'll tell you, it was so funny. Last summer in July, she walked to a restaurant with us. And that was the last time she ever walked to a restaurant. We didn't know
Yeah.
that was going to be the case. And then within 2 or 3 months, she was actually in a wheelchair most of the time.
Yeah.
And then we went to help out as family members. She had gotten some help. Finally, his 94-year-old father got some help during the day. And that was helpful to help with the morning routine and everything. But we were helping when he didn't have the nighttime support. And it was unbelievably challenging. I have to say that people underestimate the talents of people that are caregivers and what it takes for them to be able to move people from one place to another. You know what I
Uh-huh.
mean? And even if the people have muscle tone, his stepmom was so scared of falling that she would work against you when you tried to move her from one place to another.
Right.
And so the thing is not having memory of people and being scared a lot. What I noticed is finally while we were there, his dad was able to get a caregiver, but here's a 94-year-old man taking care of an 80-year-old woman who he thought was
Right.
going to take care of him. Do you know what I'm saying? And then many of my friends have been helping with their relatives and everything. And I think that from what you're telling me, it's a balance as well, that we would love to have our family members at home, and that might be the best place for them.
Right.
However, we need to get the extra help, because if you try to do it by yourself, you could wear yourself down,
Right.
is what
Right.
I'm hearing. And it sounds like it's been very difficult for your friend, even with 24/7 care in the
Right.
home. What can you say if you're advocating for somebody, or what do you think helps somebody the most? It sounds like you visit your mom regularly for one thing.
Right, just to make sure she's not dehydrated. I recently called the Obamsman because we're in a heat wave and my mom's room was hot and she doesn't know, remember me anymore. So I have to show pictures. Also, being the family caregiver, because of my experience with transfers and all this stuff, it's really caregivers need to learn how to protect their body and transfers and when the patient's agitated or what to do. My mom is like 80 pounds and she's in a Hoyer lift now. That's how they're doing transfers. She's got contractures in her lower legs, bilateral lower extremities, in her left dominant hand. And it's just heartbreaking. And here was a mom before COVID was dancing at 96 to music, even though
Wow.
her memory, but she knew the music lit her up. So putting in a nursing home, this is what has happened. If you can keep them at home, and it's just heartbreaking. I'm just getting ready to get my license in order, but boy, it's just, I know that it's just taken time. And with my injuries, I was in a walker for 2 years.
I mean, that's so hard to believe, Carol, seeing you now. But the fact that, again, the difference in the lifestyle you used to have. And then with the Lyme and with the being a walker for 2 years, you're a miracle. You're a walking miracle, in my opinion.
It was like, oh God, I was a ski instructor. And I kept saying, I'm really fatigued. So what they gave me was a synthetic estrogen. And then I kept telling them I have headaches and I'm not feeling good. So I had it that day and I was getting migraines. And I knew that through my focus off. And nobody believed me. And I believe that
Right.
caused my accident because I couldn't focus. And it was a really bad day. And yeah, this is my fifth surgery on my leg. So it was hopefully my last. So
Oh, yes.
yeah, and there's a difference in meds too. You really have to check your meds for your clients. More the bioidentical route, pay the extra money. Hormones play a really good role. Estrogen, people are living longer, stay on your hormones, and hysterectomies could have been avoided. It's sad. And a lot of in diet, watch your sugars, all this stuff. And another basic thing, you have to keep moving and you have to stay hydrated and you have to eat well. Those are just your
So
basics.
those
That's
three
the big.
things, can you repeat those again?
You have to keep moving, you have to stay hydrated, and you have to eat healthy. Even if it's, you have to make the meals, 3 healthy meals or snacks in between. That is coming down to basics. Watch your foods. They're all processed now if you can go organic. A lot of the foods are bioengineered, which changes their DNA, which people I think are getting sick. That's what I believe. It's really sad where the fibromyalgia and it changes something in our body. It's something, if you take it, you'll have a harder time with antibiotics, is what I heard.
Say
For
that again.
the bioengineered foods, you have to look at it. So it's really sad. And they don't do that in Europe.
I completely agree with what you're talking about here, because what's interesting is that when I was living with my single parent dad in high school and everything, I was eating Hostess fruit pies every morning. I shouldn't be putting a brand out there to diss a brand, but highly processed, high
Huh?
sugar, high, and all I know is that, and then leaning on the alcohol in high school and college, I didn't understand what that was doing. It was dehydrating me. And I
Uh-huh.
just was having actually more panic attacks when I wasn't on it. And that was more sugar as well and more stomach issues. And then the caffeine I was consuming was, so here I had processed foods, I was doing alcohol, caffeine, here
Yeah.
and there, the nicotine or whatever. But I think what happened to me is that I ended up by the age of 17 starting to have major gastric issues. And so by the time I was like 24, 25, and I started letting go of one thing at a time, like you, I did a bunch of biofeedback and different things to try to
Yeah.
deal with these things. But the thing that I noticed is that by 24, I let go of the alcohol. I started looking at the diet. By 29, I did this course on irritable bowel syndrome. I know that sounds goofy to some people, but I did a course. I went to it because I was having stomach issues and panic.
Yeah.
And then I was retrained. I retrained myself to just eat whole grains, just to eat organic. And this is in my late 20s, and I'm a lot older now. And I have to tell you that those decisions that we make about our food, about our hydration, about our movement, these absolutely, I believe that in some ways I'm in better shape today, decades later,
Right.
than I was in my 20s, frankly.
Yeah.
And I too have had knee surgery and everything. But as I watch some of what happens to my mom and other people having these just things removed, like you said, the hysterectomies without full information. And I'm not saying I'm a doctor or know what to do or not to do, but I just think you're not just making a decision about a physical thing. It affects your hormones. It affects everything. And I too would lean more towards bioidentical. And I want to say one more thing that to me is a passion, and that is that I believe, I've been told that if I eat food that's more locally produced as well, that this is better nutritionally for me, and it makes sense. And so
It
I
does.
also avoid genetically modified foods, and frankly would be with Europe on that one. And maybe I need to learn how to can. Maybe I need to learn how to freezing, whatever it is. Maybe I need to buy more locally. And I don't want to just have to barter with people and go back
Right.
to that system. But what I'm saying is that we eat more things today from scratch. Like we could cook our pinto beans from scratch and everything. And so
Okay.
I don't do that for everything. But what I'm saying is that I don't know, there's just more fullness to the whole thing. And there's a book called The Slowdown Diet too, that talks about the way that our breathing affects our digestion. And, there's so many aspects, and our body is our temple. It's our vehicle for this life.
Right.
And I think that my quality of life is much higher because I was forced to deal with these digestive or nutrition issues in my 20s.
You have to take a look at it, and a lot of Western medicine won't deal with it. And then when I had a hysterectomy, because of the car accident, everything was broken on the right side and trauma and brain injury.
Oh,
So that's when I started having horrible periods and stuff. And if somebody would have addressed that, it would have helped. See, you can even still see this bone is still all messed up. You can see
oh,
it was a malunion,
oh,
and that happened in the 70s. So if I would have been now, maybe they would have treated me different with physical therapy and stuff and head traumas. And then when I worked with head traumas in hospitals and stuff, the internship, I knew exactly what they were going through, how they were coming to, because you can't remember. It's really sad. And yeah, to come to. My mom was there for me the whole time. That's why I'm her advocate now. That's why I'm become her advocate. And a lot of people, like my girlfriend, she says she's the only family member that's helping, and her other family members are not looking. So that's what happens with people with dementia. And it's become like diabetes, it's so prevalent now in the
huh.
United States, the Alzheimer's and the dementia thing. So it is affecting more family members, but a lot of the family members look away. There's always one family member. My sister lived in San Jose. She didn't see my mom. Now she lives in New Zealand. She's the power of attorney. She comes, sees her once a year, and she'll visit her. But she didn't do it here when she lived here. She moved before COVID. Yeah.
One of our friends is going through dementia right now, and her brother lives thousands of miles away from her. And yet he's trying to manage it, and he's in his 80s as well. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
basically, you have either people that are older, like my father-in-law at 94, helping his 80-year-old wife, or you don't have any family members nearby, such as my friend. And several of us now are going to get her to bring her back to see us now and then, but she's trapped in some place in a bigger city because of the fact that's what her brother feels comfortable with, the power of attorney who's thousands of miles away. Yeah. But the
Right.
thing is, we all do our best. Now, my mom
Mhm.
didn't keep her mobility going as much when she was younger. I think she took advantage of the fact that she had a natural, healthy physical body,
Right.
but she didn't really get in the habits that you need later, like after menopause and things like that, to make sure that you keep your mobility going. But mobility, the nutrition, the hydration with the water, I've trained myself to like regular water. Sometimes it's filtered
Right.
or
Right.
whatever. And I think that the other thing that I'm hearing is be your own advocate. You need to
Right.
be your own advocate no matter what you're going through. And by the way, my mom went through cancer once, and my cousin that her survived it in his 30s was the one that got us through, because he was
Right.
telling us things like, when you have cancer, you need to understand what it means to have a margin when they do the surgery. You need to be your own advocate. You need to ask these people, what's my prognosis? And what was funny was, without his coaching, I hope to get him on a podcast too, because without his coaching, my mom's quality of life after that surgery would have been completely different, because
Right.
her first surgeon said, we're going to take out all your lymph nodes. Now we got to another guy who at first we were a little intimidated by, because he was 50% of all his patients were in clinical trials. But then the surgeon we went to with him only took out the sentinel node, only took out one. And so her
Right.
respiration, these are things people don't think about, is think,
Right.
especially before taking out body parts, make sure that you
Right.
think this through
Uh-huh.
before you just take whatever medication. Just go research it. Do the A
Right.
lot of Facebook groups have you've told me about and everything. And then the last thing I've heard you say is build your dream team, get your support people together. If you're going through something like starting to notice you're losing your memory, whatever, or you're going through a medical procedure, get your friends together, get your relatives together. They don't have to be related, right, Carol?
No, family doesn't have to be The intermediate, it can be your friends. And it's changed with me over the last couple of years. And some of the immediate, like family, my cousins and stuff like that, I wanted to be close to. It all changed. But my sister, when she moved to New Zealand, we're actually closer now.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then she did show up, I wanted like right before the pandemic, and this is another thing. Every time I turned around, I was trying to go back to work. I got a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, and that scared the crap out of me.
Oh,
And my antibodies were so high, and I was going through all this stuff, and it was like right before the COVID clinic were shutting down, and I remember seeing all the doctors in a panic, and I was getting a CT scan. I cleared it, and my antibodies went down in a year. So I have no idea. I have no idea what happened. One day I'm diagnosed with it, but I still run tests just to check that it's not
right.
there, and I'm not sure what happened. So I have no idea. It blows me away. So like I didn't start it because I thought I was going to die. So I think some of the tests aren't always accurate, but I've gone through some scares with the medical system. And I would also say don't postpone your life because no matter what the diagnosis is, it's not always right.
Wow,
And
that's another good
so
one.
eating good, a really good cancer clinic is Dr. Forsyth, the wellness clinic in Reno. I would always go there. He treats Lyme.
Wow.
He removes heavy metals. You do it's a another thing, heavy metals are contributing to brain disease and other Parkinson's too. Heavy
Wow.
metals in our
Wow.
system. Mercury. I've had all my mercury fillings taken out too and
That's
refilled.
interesting. And of course, as we go through life, some things that were legal like 50 years ago or something are no longer being used
Right.
because of some of these reasons. But many of us may have some leftover vestiges
Yeah.
from those eras that we all have to worry. Still, there's lead paint and asbestos and things
Right.
that just not even including what they put in our teeth. But
I know.
so
You don't
more
want
is
the
revealed.
yeah, you don't want the silver fillings. I had that taken out. If you can change your water, get a filter because just those are things. Eat good, eating healthy, try to keep yourself hydrated. That's a big thing. Older people don't always keep hydrated and you need to.
What
So
happens
it's
if you get dehydrated? What are some of the risks?
just not thinking, more
Right.
fatigued, not thinking clearly. When I notice the heat waves when my mom's room isn't hot, she's really out of it. I'm going today, like after this, I'm going right over to make sure that her room is cool, or I move her in the hall because when she's dehydrated, and I try to make sure she has water. There's like black circles under her eyes. You can tell when she's dehydrated, and that affects your brain too. So hydration, if it's like you have to go back to basics. Walk 20 minutes a day, drink your water, eat as healthy as you can, watch your sugar level, basic. And then there's different things about treating the Alzheimer's, the Mediterranean diet, lion's mane mushroom. There's different besides the hormones, the bioidentical hormones. So, and also ladies are taking it in their 70s and 80s. They're staying on the estrogen, you know.
Interesting. Interesting. And so
Everything that we were taught isn't always right.
And so there again, do what you can to understand these things for yourself. And those are some really good tips. What tips can you give, just briefly, kind of recapping, if you've got a family member going through some kind of medical procedure, the dementia, is there something like you should take care of yourself and make sure to pace yourself? Is there just making sure that you're present on a regular basis? What are just two or three things maybe that you can tell someone if they're just starting to go down the path of helping a relative or a friend?
Well, it's a long journey. You have to take care of yourself first. That's the first thing. Be kind, patience. My sponsor just kept going when I was on 24/7 care with lockdown in my mom in a studio. My sponsor would go, patience, Carol, patience and kindness, because I would lose it. Sometimes it was hard in a studio with my mom, but it was also the most rewarding time. And my mom, she was great. She served in World War II. She was a Red Cross girl. She was a
Oh,
dancer. Yeah, to see this is it's really it's taking everything from her. my mom wouldn't wanna live like this, but when I see her for just a few minutes a day, she'll smile, but she doesn't always know who I am. So I have to bring pictures and stuff. So it's hard. Any family member, it's hard. But there's usually one that will step up, the rest of them won't. And I stepped up. Yeah, my sister didn't. I asked my sister to move her to New Zealand to be in a home, but my sister didn't want to do it. Didn't
And
wanna take her in San Jose either in her huge home. She didn't want my mom in her huge home. She'd rather put her away, and it just broke my heart.
and that's the thing. Some people have capacity for it, like yourself, and other people it's just difficult. And who knows what that's about? Maybe it's too close to home. Yeah. And it'll happen to all of us at one point or another. And one of the things that brightens my heart is when you talk about your mom in World War II and these different things, it's these older people, these parents, these
Uh-huh.
grandparents, these are people like us. These were teenagers one time, and a lot of them can actually be of service and help. I actually met a friend of mine who's in her late 70s, and she's become a foster mom.
Oh, that's
And
so
it's so
great. I
neat.
mean,
It's so
yeah.
neat. And she was telling a cute story about a 4-year-old that wouldn't come out from under the table in the dark. And she was thinking, what am I gonna, or not in the dark, but just to go to bed. And
Right.
what am I gonna do? And the only thing she could think of was turn off the light. And then the little girl followed her like this. Okay. But the funny thing is that that is keeping her mind active as well as being of service. And I love this mixed generations. If there was any way with the older people and the younger people to be
Uh,
able to get more contact with one another instead of being so siloed in these nursing homes, or there's
oh,
got to
and
be a way. I know that some people do need more care. I just really appreciate you sharing your opinions too, because that's what you and I have. I'm not an expert in anything really, but at
no.
the same time, what we learn along the way is some best practices. And if it helps anybody else listening to this, then that's fantastic. And feel free to leave us
Oh,
comments in the leave us comments as well for Carol and I if you have any thoughts or
okay.
questions.
I just wanted to say that when the senior moms in the nursing home during COVID, the isolation will kill you too instead of COVID. And it was heartbreaking to see us be in a 6 by 10 space on going to the window. And I just went through another big COVID outbreak. And my mom just had got over COVID. So it's
Oh,
just, and then I'm not even sure she had it, and they just gave her the antiviral drug when she got so sick, and I'm like, "How is she surviving this?" I have no idea. I don't
wow.
even believe she had it, and it's crazy. It spread through the place like a wildfire. I wore universal precautions, but it's so a senior, when you're placing them in a home, you don't know what's gonna happen with COVID. The lockdowns they changed the laws that family members can come in. Before we weren't allowed to come in, and it was like, this insanity. This is I'm not gonna say anything when you couldn't see your family members, and I know I had a cousin that was isolated that died alone, and my mom's friend died alone
Oh,
during
gosh,
this.
gosh.
No. So so I think the medical with this new disease is really changed a lot with people. Yeah, and with the
Yeah.
seniors and memory care, and my mom had no idea the world changed. That's why I moved in with her. So that's how
Oh,
bad it was
wow.
memory. So you really wanna protect your while you have your memory now, eat good.
Yeah, eat
Eat
good,
good,
hydrate, stay mobile.
exercise, get sunlight, 1 a day, vitamin D, fish oil. Fish oils are good. Just you don't wanna go into that memory. It's really
Oh,
you don't wanna get lost in our system. It's not right, you
oh,
know?
that's
I've had it's just heartbreaking, especially with COVID.
wow. And so
Sorry.
I think what you just said there is so important for yourself and your loved ones. Try not to get lost in the system. And
Yeah.
the way to do it is be proactive as much as you can for as long as
Yes.
you can with the basics. And Carol, I just so appreciate you sharing your
Oh,
wisdom
sorry.
and
Yeah.
your experience and
Oh,
everything.
yeah. No,
Um,
it's the most heartbreaking with the
oh,
COVID and seniors
oh,
and seeing them. It's just
oh.
it's
The
heartbreaking, you know?
isolation, it just sounds like you said that. I think another good thing you brought up was the fact that we're emotional beings as well. And we
Oh,
need connection. We need,
my mom didn't understand. She thought it was jail.
oh no, it's
Our
too, Carol.
prisoners were being treated better than our seniors during COVID.
Oh
Sorry. That's
no.
how I felt.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't believe this was happening. I know they were trying to not spread it, but what happened to our seniors, we lost so many.
Maybe
So,
that's something we can learn from this epidemic too, is that the ends doesn't always justify the means, and it may
yeah,
end up that the ends happen anyway, despite what you do. And
yeah,
maybe
I know.
some of the things you try could contribute to the things you're trying to avoid. And
Yeah.
and I just thank you so much for your vulnerability and
Oh,
sharing as
sorry.
well. No, that's
Yeah,
okay. I'll tell you what, Carol, I'm with you. I'd rather be connected to my loved ones the best that I can. And I'm not always maybe the best person for a specific person,
yeah,
but at the same time, where I can, I'm with you. I'd rather be connected and have some of the pain that's involved with seeing them suffer here and there, being around some illness. I don't want to have this rub off on me. Like,
yeah,
even though this stuff is not contagious like dementia, yeah,
yeah.
but it's just
I
like,
know, I know. Yeah,
but at the same time, I tell you what, the magic too, when you do spend time, because we spent 2 weeks helping my husband's stepmom, and I called a couple friends who are caregivers because I was like, whoa, we are way in over our head here. And one suggestion that was made was think about the music that she really loves. And so my husband started playing her Beethoven, and she was a pianist. And all of
yeah,
a sudden, her fingers on the table are going like this, and she's swaying. And then the other thing is that we played another song, and she's singing with the bridge of it.
yeah,
And she's just, and it's just like tapping in to these. And
yeah.
then you really get excited when you see them. And so I just want to thank you again for
Oh, no, no, thank you.
illuminating
Yeah, yeah,
personal as well as our loved ones' health and how it takes a village. And even if it's two people in the village, you and your mom,
yeah.
myself and my mom, and I have a sister that helps out and a brother too,
Yeah.
somewhat. Anyway, I really want to thank you
Oh,
from the deepest part of
thank
my heart
you.
for
Yeah,
sharing your
thank
wisdom.
you.
And I look forward to having you on again because there's so much more to talk about where it
Yeah,
relates to
just
physical, mental, emotional health and overall well-being.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Victoria.
Yeah.
I really wish our system would do some more for our seniors today.
Oh,
That's
thank
what
you for that ending thought. I'm going to put that out there as well as part of our description
yeah,
about what can we, the system, do to help our seniors more.
right. So that's what they're looked away, especially memory patients and Parkinson's. They fought for our country, and I'm just saying, and it's just that's why we're here, and it's sad our system's looking away. So we need to take better care of our seniors.
Yes, and every senior has somebody in
Yeah,
their life that could be dropping by, coming to check in, saying hello. Yeah.
right.
And so anyway, thank you again. And I will talk to you very soon, my friend.
Okay. Thanks, Victoria.
Okay.
Have a good day.